Okay, well, welcome to our podcast series, and we've done numerous podcasts. Sometimes they're going to be books, inspirational books that have moved me or helped me in my career. Sometimes they'll just be subjects that we're toying around with and interested in. Tonight, actually, we have a really cool podcast roundtable here with all the teachers from our traditional atelier as well as the online atelier. So we're going to be doing it on professionalism and what it means to be a professional. So we're just going to basically think tank and just kind of talk about our experiences, some of our experiences in the different professions. Collectively, we've probably worked in most of the different industries that some of you may be interested in getting into, whether it's fine art, concepting, visual development. My dad's done architectural rendering, straight illustration. I've got Eric in the horror genre, Lucas over in Magic the Gathering and a lot of fantasy stuff. I've done a lot of that as well as fine art, Meadow's fine art mostly. So we should be able to really get into it and talk to you guys a little bit about what it's like to be a working professional, just from a bunch of people that have done it for quite a while. So hopefully you'll enjoy, and we'll just get started. Jeff, you want to moderate?
All right, so let me open the first question up to all of you guys. So professionalism, what exactly does it mean to be a professional?
Be on time, mostly. No, it's really true though. You know, the when I first got into it, you get a job, they need it Tuesday at 2:30. You better be there Tuesday at 2:30 with something pretty decent, and that's probably the biggest hurdle. You're better off to show up with something that isn't quite perfect and be there than not. And be late, because that's the one thing they don't forgive in this business. Is late.
Now, Eric, I know you because you're not the deadline king. I mean, you're phenomenal, but I know this has been an issue for you. Yeah. So, how do you feel about that?
I think he's right. Yeah, absolutely. And if there's one thing I could change about the way I do things, it would be to be on time every time. But I think even on top of that, communication is huge. If you're not going to be on time, give them 2 or 3 days notice. Say, hey, look, can I get a little bit of extra time? Communicate with them basically and say, hey, is this a hard, fast deadline, or is this your play around deadline, or when do things need to go to print? And also, like Bob said, get them something so that they can start the approval process, even if it's not done to your likings, because usually you're going to have 2-3 days at least while they're approving things, and you can finish things off to your liking as long as you're not changing anything and you're just refining it, prettying up a face or punching up some lighting. They're not going to notice that. That's kind of for yourself anyway. So I've actually been a lot better about it lately, and when I usually know 3 days out that I'm probably not going to hit it without an all-nighter, and I'll tell them, hey, is there a day or two wiggle room, and get their input on that. And if the answer is no, then I pull the all-nighter. But if the answer is yeah, you can have a couple extra days, then I'd much rather be able to sit down at night and have dinner with my wife and get a good night's sleep, and in the end I'll do better work for them. And yeah. I've also been doing it long enough that they know that it's gonna, the people I work with know it's gonna come in good. So I think that
helps
gets them to relax a little bit. Yeah, they don't want something to come in 2 days late and look like you spent 2 days on it. If it comes in 2 days late and it looks like you spent 2 extra days on it, they're usually gonna be pretty forgiving. So.
Yeah. Lucas, how about you? Have you had run-ins with it? You're saying
that was pretty good, yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Meadow, how did you break into the market that you currently work in?
I don't think I really tried very hard to break into the art market. It sort of snuck up on me, I guess. I was lucky that Jeff gave me a chance to kind of do a little bit of the gallery thing through the school, so I got a little bit of practice with that. And then I happened to submit my work to a couple galleries, and they took my work in. I didn't sell very well, so I tried not to take it too personally, but thought, well, it's better at least to be trying to put work out there, even though you're not where you should be, rather than waiting for that perfect moment for your work to be good enough, because most artists feel their work's never really good enough. And then I was fortunate enough to get picked up by a gallery in a better market. And then from there, I was picked up by another gallery who saw my work. So I was really fortunate. It was a little bit more through, I guess, word of mouth than shopping around at a lot of places. So.
Well, I think that's really a good point. Everyone thinks that you go out on January 18th and you start marketing yourself, and by February 18th you have it all solved and you're somewhere. But it's not like that. I think most of it you say, how did you get into this business? And
Kind of organically happens.
You know, like you rear-ended somebody's car and it turns out to be the senior art director at such and such. You know, and you've had a few phone calls on where you can, you know, what your insurance company is, and all of a sudden you get to talking, and all of a sudden you've got, you say, I'm an illustrator, and he says, no kidding. You know, and I mean, a lot of stuff happens just that crazy way.
I think also friends. I mean,
friends
friends from school. Like I got most of my jobs from Morgan and Greg and those guys. Once they knew that you were solid, you know, so the networking within a school environment can be really good as well in a subtle manner. Not you wouldn't want to rely on it, or a school would rely on it. A school should be responsible for repping you. But you know, as far as the connections you make with old friends, and once they get out working, a lot of times that trickles back in, and you know, or they phase out of a career in some form of illustration. That's what happened with Morgan, and then he didn't want the work anymore, but he wanted the clients to not be hanging, so he would refer some of his friends to.
Well, and just artists in general. Not even, I mean, I've
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
gotten
exactly.
more work by showing my artwork to other artists at conventions, and then they'll tell you, hey, you know, you should go talk to Bob over at, you know, HeroClix, and go drop my name. And you go over and you say, hey, when you can ask for a specific individual and say, hey, is Bob around? And then you say, hey, you know, in my case, John Foster recommended me for a couple jobs, or recommended me 2 people, and I was able to drop his name, and he got me work because he was well known and well respected. And similar type of situation too. It was maybe clients that he didn't really want to work for anymore.
But still
had
respected him and wanted to make sure you
yeah.
didn't leave him hanging or something.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think showing, a lot of people want to go straight to the horse's mouth and straight to art directors and do portfolio reviews. Those are all great things. But I think also just showing your work to other artists that you admire and getting their input, because they'll give you a more of an honest read on where you are. And if they think you're good enough, they'll point you in the right direction.
Well, you do the con circuit. So how's that been working for you as far as recruiting or getting work from that as well? I mean, or is it just mostly specific because you're doing such specific cons?
Yeah, the cons I'm doing are a little bit more specific to it's almost, I did a little bit of the con circuit, like Comic-Con and stuff, but I think where I got most of my in was at the school.
Yeah.
Having fellow artists around, there was guys that were working professionally in the class, so I have my portfolio and they say, hey, we're looking for people.
That was Sony, wasn't it?
It
There
was
were some
Sony,
Sony
yeah.
guys
That
in
was the
there
first
that
gig.
were doing some art directors and stuff that were in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know we had Cranford in, and that was always helpful from Blizzard because he would, you know, kind of headhunt people. I mean, that's smart. If you were an art director, I'd go to a good art school
Yeah.
and look for young talent or something. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of them do that. So schools are another good opportunity to get into the industry.
All right. How about you, Lucas? What's your favorite part of the job and least favorite part of your job?
Working freelance, it definitely has its pros and cons. I definitely like the flexibility of it. You know, being able to kind of pick and choose what I want to do. Working from home is great. No commute. I mean, that's ideal for me. It's a chance to kind of, you know, work on stuff that I want to work on. So if I get, you know, a job that says, hey, we want this particular thing, and we want this other job that says I want dragons, I don't necessarily want to work on this other thing. So it's flexible, which is great. The cons is a lot of times you have to do stuff that you're not super into. You know, I'll get a job working on something. I'm working on one right now that I'm not super happy about, but it's work. You know, it's part of being a professional. You got to you know, bend over backwards sometimes and take those jobs you don't necessarily want to take. I don't know, kind of a little bit arrogant about this, but it's just kind of, you know. I think,
Lucas.
It's okay, Lucas.
It's okay.
Be yourself.
Be yourself. And you've taken a crap load of interesting projects over the years.
Oh my word, yeah.
We all
I
have.
mean, the professional thing, you know, which is kind of the tack of this whole conversation, you know, is that the really good people they manage to take things that you said, I never could have done anything with that job, and it's a knockout. I mean, that the real secret is to you know, and it's hard. I mean, to be sure, you get those jobs where you know. I remember when I was doing advertising illustration, I got this job, and it was to do a tuna pizza.
Ugh.
Sounds horrific.
Certain
good.
things cannot be solved.
Certain things cannot
That
be-
was a product that had no texture that was identifiable.
No
you know, but your point's well taken, though. I mean, there are certain things that you just can't get into.
Yeah.
I think probably the
Did you do the job?
I did, yeah. It was a nightmare.
Was it an airbrush job?
Look appetizing.
It was anything that would work. I mean, it was. They had
Real
everything.
tuna stuck to
Yeah,
it.
I was going to say, it had everything.
He actually
but
made
the
himself
tuna.
a tuna pizza and just photographed it.
Yeah,
and
it's
sent
like
it off.
Photoshop. That was fantastic.
Oh, yeah, just, I mean, there's a.
I've never heard of
I
that
could,
one.
I could go
That's a
through.
good
I,
one.
I could go through a whole list of.
I know,
things
I saw
like
a few.
that.
I think I'm gonna
where-
start craving that now.
Equivalent, because you know you
We'll have to start
you
wondering
get
if you-
bad art directors and you get bad problems.
That's a big part of it. Is just not
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't know necessarily what they want,
It's
they don't have
not-
the vision, and they're trying to control what you're doing, and you're kind of like, well, look, I think it's gonna look better this way. Trust me, this is my job. The
we-
doesn't always
we
work
had
out.
another
What
one
Bob
that was-
started make though was a really good one, that the people I admire aren't so much those just like wild, uncontrolled, creative minds that you look in their sketchbook and it's just full of these, you know, Terry Gilliam ideas, you know, they're just wild and whacked out. It's cool to see. But the guys that really impress me are the guys that can take those just jobs that you cannot see your way around and they'll take it and turn it into something amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity under restriction to me is way more impressive than just unbridled creativity.
No,
And I even think it's easier. I mean, if somebody
Yeah,
says, do anything you want.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's the worst thing they can say to you. You know, I mean, it just all your creative processes and problem solving abilities just disintegrate right there on the spot, and you start staring at the white paper and you can't get past it. You
Well, you
know?
also know it's not true.
Yeah.
From the get-go, when someone hires you to do a job, whatever you want, that job does not exist, and that just means throw a bunch of stuff at me until you do something that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what it really means.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part about illustration, I think. What it was for me anyway. It was just that stab in the dark and hope that you hit the guy's interest or taste or something.
That's why it's important to work, just like as an actor, it's important to work with good directors.
Or
As an artist, it's
fill your
important to work
portfolio
with good
like you
art
did with
directors.
very specific things that you want to
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
so people know kind of what you do.
Yeah, no one's gonna hire me to do cute and fuzzy. You know, it's just not gonna happen, right? From the get-go, there was no cute and fuzzy in my
Oh come
portfolio.
on, little
so,
cute fuzzy vampires and zombies. I can make you can do it.
Jeff, how do you feel about freelance jobs versus in-house positions?
You know, I did quite a bit of both, and and Eric was around when I was doing a lot of illustration. I wasn't really a great illustrator because I did have a hard time, you know, just committing to different industries. And so for freelance, I would prefer freelance personally, because I just, you know, if you're fast and efficient and good and you're being hired to do certain things, it's just nice to be able to have the luxury of doing them at your own pace and not being in an environment where you're always feeling like they're maybe just giving you more and more stuff to do, and then you either have to probably stall a little bit or come in slow just so that you don't end up they just grind on you if you get it done early. I always like to be able to kind of do a little bit and then have other things like my fine art or something I was working on the side, because I'm a pretty fast executor, so I would then be able to get my job done and it would be done well and I wouldn't phone it in or anything, but then I would be able to go over and work on some other personal projects or things of that sort. But I think freelance, they both have pluses. If you're going to raise a family and you're going to put kids through college and do all that stuff, then in-house is awfully tempting because of the kid. You know, you'll have your benefits. You're going to be, if you're working under the umbrella of something like Disney or DreamWorks or any of those guys. It would probably, and they are doing more freelance now. I don't know if they're doing as much in-house, but they still keep their development guys in-house, and a lot of the more high-level executors are usually kept in-house. They don't want to lose that talent. So, but I think if you look at someone like Craig Mullins or Jamie Jones and those guys, where you know Craig's living in Hawaii and doing freelance, it's hard to beat. I mean, it's like, you know, being able to live where you want to live, do what you want to do, and micromanage your time. I don't think you can put a price on that. So to me, that's always what I would favor. But if in a pinch, you know, in-house positions are really, really good. It just depends on your temperament. And also, yeah, are you traveling light, or do you have kids in tow and all that kind of stuff? I think that makes a big difference. That's why I was so impressed by you over the years, you know, raising all of us freelance, 3 young kids as a freelancer. That's a kamikaze run.
Yeah.
That was.
It didn't get very elegant until fairly recently. You know, when you finally got enough space and, you know, a decent room and decent lighting and decent equipment and everything.
So now that the grandkids are out of high school, you feel like it's settling down a little
That's
bit?
pretty much it, yeah.
Just in time for the great grandkids to come rolling in. No, I don't know. It's hard to say.
that can happen
It's
too.
hard to say.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. But yeah, how did you like? I mean, you've been a freelancer forever, so that question would have been really good for you too, because I freelance. But
well, I started out in aerospace, which is really weird. Yeah, but I was aerospace, and I got to do everything that came in, and there were things like portraits of admirals, paintings for executives' walls, cartoons,
That'd be a
all
fun
kinds
job.
of machinery illustrations and cutaways, and I mean, just it was everything and anything, and some of it was really arty and some of it was not so arty, but it was a real great training ground. And then, like everybody said, freelance design studios would come into our graphics department and they would get jobs, and they'd say, they got to know me, and they'd see, well, what are you working on, and bring your portfolio by, and that kind of leaks in. So I did that for a while, finally left, did freelance illustration, and then that was with advertising and just all kinds of stuff. And that was a dial-a style period at that
I
point,
remember you doing that.
where you were Norman Rockwell one day and you were doing airbrush the next, and it was very demanding. And then some guy across the hall, this is that serendipity thing that we're kind of alluding to. The guy across the hall was an architect in this nice new building that we had moved our offices into. And I was with a group of freelancers all kind of clustered together into an organization. And he said, "You don't do architectural renderings, do you?" And I said, "I don't see why not." I mean, after all of this other stuff, it was it's metal and glass and skies and trees and things, and I painted all of those things. So it turned out to be a little more difficult than I thought, but it led to a huge career that lasted for decades. And then now the conceptual thing is really what I love, and it's at this point in your career, it's a little tough to compete with young people who will work for a zero salary and sleep under the computer, at the office at night. So you can't. You're kind of overqualified and
And when
an underknown, at a certain point. So it becomes more and more difficult to change majors. But it's really just one last word. It's really important to keep changing yourself, because you have a tendency. The world changes really quick now, and it just says, "Oh, we don't do that anymore," and that's what you do, and you're in trouble. So you want to be trying new things all the time and exploring new markets and trying new things all the time. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. Oh, and then one other thing. When you, it's really important, when you first go out and take your portfolio around to people, you don't get to talk to the senior godhead at the studio. You get to talk to the newest sap that they've hired, and he's only barely better than you are, if at all. And he loves your stuff naturally, because he still doesn't know the difference. And you go away thinking that you have talked to this organization, they liked your stuff, and you're waiting for the phone call. Ain't gonna happen. So you can be warned that the quality of your response is directly proportional to the title of the person that gives it. And so if you can find any way, like Eric was talking about, if somebody says drop my name, ask for Bob, boy, you're way ahead of the game. So that advice is really good, solid stuff. So the combination of the two might get you something.
All right. Eric, how do the various industries work, in your opinion?
Oh man, that's a
pretty
tough
broad
one. Yeah, that's a pretty broad one. I mean, most of my experience at this point has been either in gaming illustration, like tabletop gaming illustration, or a lot of comic covers lately. And those both more or less work the same. And it's just like Bob was talking about. It's like having some sort of an end beyond being good. Being good is important, because if you're not good, no tip in the world is going to help you. So the best tip is to be really, really good. But on top of that, getting into an industry and sort of making your name in it, a huge part of that is going to be having someone recommend you somewhere along the line that their opinion is important. In my case, in comics, it was hugely beneficial that I was doing a horror convention, and the movie director Guillermo del Toro came by, liked my work, asked if I wanted to do a job. That job ended up not paying off for like 4 years, but about 6 months later, I got a call from Dark Horse Comics, and he was doing a comic through them. And when Del Toro recommends that you hire someone, you hire them. And so they hired me, and then that led to other jobs with them, which led to other jobs with them. Now I've been working with them for 4 or 5 years. And that's pretty much true of any industry. On top of that, just shotgun it. Nothing is a bad idea. If a company has an art drop, send your stuff into the art drop. They may look at it that day. They may not look at it for 3 months. They may look at it and see you, but then they don't have the right job for you. So a lot of it is again, like Bob said, serendipity. It's good timing. It's your work showing up on the right person's desk at the time that they need the exact job done that was in your portfolio. That's what they want. They want to see the job that they want to hire for literally in your portfolio done, and then they'll have you redo it for some reason. But but that's kind of the way.
Don't you love it?
It's good timing. It's just a huge amount of it. So I guess the way
persistence.
persistence, exactly. That's sticking around long enough. So you better love doing it. I think every industry works this way. You better love doing it because you're going to sit around trying to get in for a long, long time unless you get really fortunate. I always wanted to do comic covers. I got into doing Magic the Gathering, which is a pretty prestigious gig, and relatively quickly. And it was cool. I liked doing Magic the Gathering, but I hadn't even ever really thought about doing it that much. I wanted to do comic covers. It took me 5 years, 6 years to get into doing comic covers, and it's probably not even as prestigious a gig, but the timing just wasn't right. I showed my work to the same people at Dark Horse that ended up hiring me multiple times and never heard from them. And then the right timing came along and it worked out. So.
And I know with you guys, I mean, because we haven't really touched. I mean, a lot of it, the audience is probably visual development / illustration, but I don't know. There may be some fine arts, and I know Meadow and I have kind of had a lot of experience, and my dad in the fine arts. But it's similar to what you were saying. I mean, like I think people always want to know how to approach a gallery and whether or not what's the appropriate means. They don't really want to turn you down to your face. So just going in with a bunch of slides or something or tear sheets and trying to show it to them is not the best way to go. But if you just send them in, also it can be kind of dicey. So. Entering organizations like OPA or California Art Club or Portrait Society, going out, and it is an investment. Like I was talking to Meadow about the articles I've gotten or things I've gotten. I had to go out to I'm just year after year going to these shows and being there and having people see you, and then having some of the editors from the major magazines. At first, I couldn't get them to even give me the time of day, for years. And then after they've seen you a couple times, you win a couple awards. All of a sudden, they come up to you. You kind of make a connection. They need an article done on figurative painters. You come up, and next thing you know, you get an article. And then another major magazine sees that article. They'd like to do something. So it kind of comes in groupings. Like when I first got my first article, then about 4 of them came after that, and then nothing for years. And then every once in a while, they would remember you or think of you, and so trying to get in their radar is really important. But a lot of people think that you're just going to sit in your studio and somehow someone's going to traipse through the door sometime and make your name. It's like it's never going to happen. You got to get out and peddle your wares. You got to be willing to put yourself out there, be social. So if you're the stereotypical artist that doesn't like to talk to collectors, doesn't like to be out schmoozing around, I totally understand that. But I tried to avoid the organizations for building a name because I didn't like the politics that were involved in them. But once I started...
They're all political.
And they're all political.
Yeah.
So when I did the organizations finally and gave in and did them, and understood that it is political, and that when politics are in your favor, it's not that big of a problem, but when it's not,
Exactly.
it is a big problem. So you just got to get in there and pay your dues and be willing to put your best work forward, and sooner or later it gets recognized. But it's always that, I don't want to say that saying what, blank floats and cream rises.
Yeah.
But basically the cream always rises to the top, and a lot of times you'll see stuff floating on the surface that's not so great, and you'll wonder how did that person possibly get there or get into this. But that doesn't mean they're going to be around a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. If you look at a lot of the old magazines, I'm always curious about oh, that's a phenomenal painter. Where is that person? Or where'd that person go? And so it's a long road. So you got to be patient. You got to get out there. And for galleries, it's more about again, it's about guilty by association. So pick galleries where you would want your work to be synonymous with them. Don't just grab whatever gallery is going to show you, because they're not always legit. They're not always going to pay you at all. Sometimes.
You can see if your work even fits the gallery. I was in one gallery that I thought would be great, but it was primarily a landscape gallery. And I actually had someone call in to buy one of my pieces, and they didn't even give her the time of day. They sounded like they didn't even know who I was, even though I was in the gallery. And it kind of gave me the clue that I'm probably not the best fit for this space.
Yeah, and you'll find those galleries like anything where they really do. Like you have a great one now.
I have a great one now.
Yeah, and that's
he tries to sell everything I send.
And that's the thing. I think is just being patient in the gallery. You almost want to have. In a lot of industries, you want to have a couple of careers going at the same time.
Yes.
And that's what makes it so hard. You kind of have to either be a teacher on the side, or you do this on the side or that on the side, while you're waiting for that to slowly build your career to the point where you can jettison the one to replace the other. And you always want to be careful about jettisoning a good gig because you never know what's going to be on the horizon. So I think
chickens in one.
yeah. So I think being flexible, like my dad was saying, being very tenacious, keeping your skill sets in lots of areas up, but not so much that you dilute them down to where you're kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, there are some people that are in that boat, but that's
jack of all trades, master of one.
There you go.
Well, I
That's
changed
what you
my
want.
subject matter. I changed my subject matter at the request of my gallery. They asked if I wouldn't mind throwing in a couple Native American pieces, and I said, okay, I guess I'll try that. And I ended up really liking it. So.
But also, without whoever you want to work with, without being rude, don't take no for an answer. Like, don't be persistent to the point of putting someone off, but don't take no for an answer. I contact a lot of galleries on Meadow's behalf. I don't think any of them has ever said, yeah, we're looking for artists right now. Every single one says, we're not really looking for artists now. And what that means is, we're not really looking for artists until the artist walks through the door that we want, and then we're looking for an artist. And it's the same way with illustration too.
Yeah.
They're never looking to hire
But
unless you're hireable.
They're also not looking to turn you down. They want to make money off you. And so it's like,
if you're good, they want you. in
yeah,
their
and that's what I
gallery.
think when people, like I used to listen to these guys at Comic-Con complain about self-publishing all the time, and then you look at what they're trying to publish, and you're like, well, I can see why you're having a hard time with self-publishing, because you don't have a good product. It's terrible.
And that's why art directors and gallery owners give that answer so often, because if all it takes is, we're not looking for artists right now, to turn you away, you're probably not the type of person that they want working for them, because they want that person that wants to do it so badly, they're going to kick the door down. They don't want that person that's like, I'm thinking about doing a little bit of art on the side. They don't want that person. So you have to act like it's your heart's desire. And if it's not, maybe it isn't for you, to be honest, because it's not the easiest career in the world.
Yeah.
So you better love doing it. That's, really above everything else, love doing it. It shouldn't be
First
something
and
you're
foremost.
like,
And then make a living at it, because you can make an incredible living at it. But again, it's when you align those things until the intellectual and the heart and the two all those come together. It's just either you're doing it only for the money or you're doing it for wrong reasons.
There's roadblocks built into the system, and so if you're not willing to bust through some roadblocks, then you're not ever going to make it, because it's part of the system. It's endemic to it, and always will be.
Yeah.
All right, I'll open this one to the group. What role does technology play these days, and how has it influenced your working methods and marketing?
Wow.
Lucas.
Well, I have an answer for that.
Go ahead.
Okay. I would say as something I always point out that I'm really happy about is that we have digital cameras as an artist. And when I first started, I would take pictures of my reference and have to take the film rolls in and get them developed and hope that I had something good to work from. And now, literally, I need a new hand for this painting I'm working on. I could
Pull
shoot
up my
my
phone.
hand or
Yeah.
anything, and you
time.
can instantly be working. Also, I get to paint from a monitor screen. Before I was printing all my reference out on paper and spend a fortune on ink, and now I can just paint from my monitor. So in that sense, there's been some great technology.
There's
Fine artists.
there's a bucket of it.
It's hard to
it's
not-
like
it's
things
changed
like
everything.
flatbed scanners you can have in your office, all-in-one printers that can do everything from 25% to 400 and something, by 1% increments. I mean, things that you used to have to do. And then the point about the camera is well taken, because
But then Photoshop is just
Photoshop's
freaking the
Thank
best thing that
God
ever
for
happened
Photoshop.
to anybody.
And,
Yeah.
and the architectural illustration business, they came up with a great program called SketchUp a few years back, quite a few years back actually now. But you could do three-dimensional calculate sketch shadows, do everything, look at 1 million views. When I first started in architectural illustration, you would spend all day, like maybe 12, 14 hours doing one drawing from blueprints of one view, and they say, can we come around a little bit to the left? So that's another 14 hours to come around a little bit to the left. Now
That's so brutal.
you spend the 14 hours building a model, and you give them 23 views of it in about 5 minutes, and print them out on your own printer. Email them, so you don't have to even drive to the place to show them to them.
But what an
Each one-
appreciation!
It's really great.
To have gone through that older version.
It's handy
priceless.
upon occasion.
Like
yeah.
cameras, also just the reflection. Like the younger generation, it's like, I sound
You don't
like
take it for
old.
granted as much.
No, it's like cameras when you used to have to guess at what you were gonna get,
Oh.
or go on a trip and then you have to have like 2 camera bodies with different film speed, or
The
you
rolls
couldn't
are
just think,
terrible. You're like, what
oh my god,
happened?
yeah, traveling and just get
Oh.
ruined in the X-ray machine or something, coming back back home.
Well, back in the old days, in places in the big cities like New York, Chicago, LA, there was guys that their job was to shoot reference for illustrators. That's
Exactly.
what they did.
Yeah.
You didn't even shoot your own reference. You went in and you hired a professional to shoot the reference so that you knew what you were getting.
Yeah.
And you'd stay, direct them and tell them what to do. And, so it was such a pain in the butt back then that there was actually guys that was their job. And whenever anything's sufficiently a pain in the butt, someone out there is going to turn into a job.
Sure,
and make
sure.
money off of it. Yeah.
Why not?
So, yeah.
But even like you look at Rockwell when he used to set everyone up and just paint that all prima, before the camera. I mean, but how much better did he get because of that? So I think sometimes the technology, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, it's made our jobs incredibly, streamlined for the people that I think are using it prior to it coming out. The ones that are now reliant on it, I don't know how. I think it's still beneficial to them, but I think it's like anything. It becomes almost a crutch or a weakness for the generation that doesn't know what came before it.
Oh,
I don't know. So yeah, I mean, to me,
it's a complicated planet now. I had a job just recently where it was I do digital computer renderings architecturally as well now, and but I'm not quite as experienced. I'm good at it, but I'm not quite as experienced as some of the guys that have been doing it since day one. And so I got this one, and it was a spot. Long story short, a hotel on Maui. Bad aerial view, and all you had to work from was Google. And I said, well, we could probably fix this and do that. And the competitor sends a drone out and shoots a new photo and gets the job. I mean, so if you're not right on top of the technology
You get a drone now.
and what's involved in it,
There we
so he paid like $600 for somebody to fly a drone out there, get him 26 pictures of this from roughly the right location. And it's all geophysically geolocated, right to down to seconds. And so I mean you just can't move fast enough really anymore. And I've always been proactive with technology, but geez, you gotta pay attention.
You do.
Well, there's also the changes that people will want now too because of digital. You'll turn in a job and they'll get back to you in a day or two and say, hey, that's great, but can we color shift this, or can we move that guy, or can we scale this down? And it's just part of it now. Whereas back in, I imagine, I wasn't even born yet, but I imagine back in the 60s and 70s, they'd hire you to do a job, and either you lived in New York or you shipped it off to the publisher, and what showed up on their doorstep is what they had. They weren't going to mail it back to the guy and then have him, repaint a head and hope it was right. So there's infinite changes that can be made now. So, I mean, yeah, there's a good part of it that I don't have to live in New York if I want to work in book covers or, wherever. I don't have to work within walking distance of whoever I'm working with. I can just send it through email. But the thing is, they can also send it back through email and say, hey, I need this changed. So, which is cool because it gets them closer to exactly what they want. But as an illustrator, sometimes, you'll be on to the next job and then you have to go back to the thing you were working on last week and, change a head, which is, it's part of the job, but it's not my favorite part of the job.
That goes back to that earlier question. What's your
Yeah.
least favorite part of the job?
Yeah.
Having to work on a job you've already invoiced.
Yeah.
That's one of them.
One of the problems I ran into doing the shows was that because most of us here are all of us traditional painters, you can't bring your easel with you. So there's these programs. I mean, like the Companion, the thing that Wacom came up with. I could bring that with me. I can work in the airport. I can do all the stuff I need to, prep work wise, or invoicing, or whatever, contracts, and then send that out while I'm out and about, so I can still work and get stuff done, and then come back home, get on the easel with all the stuff.
All the stuff
ready
you
to
don't
go.
like doing too.
Exactly.
You're on the road and you get all the stuff. So yeah, when you get back in the studio, it's old school time. Now you're back doing what maybe not as well, but what Rockwell was doing. Right? I mean, once you're in front of the easel, it doesn't matter. The computer's not going to help you out too much.
Lucas, how do you balance your personal and professional life, as in goals, family, health, etc.?
You had to give me this one.
No,
You're
you're perfect for it.
I don't know. I'm definitely different here.
You're the family man here.
Yeah,
You guys have to take this one. We're fine solo.
Oh man, my situation's very different. I watch my daughter throughout the day, so I get about 2 to 3 hours at night, and I can't do the all-nighters because it's not fair to my daughter in the morning.
I can't even do it because I'm 40 years old.
So, I get about 2 to 3 hours at night and weekends to work. So that's pretty much my limit. Until, when she gets a little older, she'll get into school and I'll have a lot more time. But for the time being, my career's kind of on a, I don't know, it hasn't flatlined, but it's definitely it's barely floating right now. So, and it's okay. I don't mind. You know, I'm.
That happens to everybody.
Yeah. I don't see how.
Time and again.
And you're going to appreciate that so much more down the road.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean,
man.
man,
The relationship my daughter and I have.
20
is
years
great.
from now, you're going to go, dude, that was maybe
So
the best
worth
time
it.
of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is great is the school, like the online school, and being still a part of it. That's a little bit more of a security I can hold on to.
Yeah.
And the freelance stuff, I can kind of back off a little bit and just do 1 or 2 jobs and not have to, pout on and.
Yeah, it's nice if you can have something that takes the pressure off of, like, I remember Eric tailoring his portfolio and kind of incubating and really spending time.
For a long time,
Yeah.
doing it the way that I wanted to.
Yeah,
not
and that's
the
a
rest
lot.
right
That
now,
is
yeah.
a wonderful opportunity that the school's offered all of us. Really, I mean, it's just and it's been good and bad. Like for me, it's kept me from going headlong into my fine art because I haven't had to, or just but so for me, it's been kind of a double-edged sword. It always is, but it is. I've been so thankful to have something like that. So let's see, where were we? You were. This was how we balance our lives, because you guys are more into, like, we do a lot of physical stuff, a lot of working out, a lot of this, a lot of that, and trying to keep that. I remember, trying to keep the health part, because I mean, I know for me, those nagging aches and pains and stuff that happens from painting in really bad positions and just not.
Sedentary.
It's ergonomically really a bad career.
Well, that's what got me back into working out, is that
Yeah.
you got to a point where my neck or shoulder was going out like once a month. And I thought, my brother, that's what he does. He's got his doctorate in,
Yeah.
kinesiology. So talked to him a little bit about it, and he said, you need to work your whole body and not just this all day
these single
long.
motion
So
activities.
he said, of course that's what's going out, because that's what you use all day long. He said, use some other stuff, and you can do that stuff even longer. So I did, and then
And you do.
then the way we made time for it is we started doing that stuff together.
Yeah.
So like this morning we went to the track together and ran. So
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I mean, I remember because you went through periods, we all do, where you kind of let it go and you get sedentary, and then all of a sudden you just don't. Yeah, the energy levels wane because you think working out would give you less energy. It actually gives you 10 times the energy because endorphins, and it pumps your body full of a
Plus,
bunch
when
of
you
energy.
hit your 30s, you start changing, and then you get 40, and you start changing.
Yeah,
so
starts-
Lucas, it's coming, baby. It's coming. You're
You
next.
see the writing on the wall. You can't keep relying on your youth.
But my advice on that would be find ways to do what you're doing with the other people in your life. So it doesn't have to be, I'm lucky. We're really fortunate, but I mean, it doesn't have to be, I'm painting, I'm working out, I'm spending time with the family. It can be, I'm working out with my family, or in my case, I'm painting with my wife. We paint at the same time. So we have so many shared interests. So I'm the worst person to answer this. So. But
Sure.
we're really fortunate because we share so many interests. We like doing a lot of the same
That's key.
stuff. So
And I always tell people that too, when you go to actually build a career. And if you're talking about professionalism, your spouse has a lot to do with it, whether you're going to make it or not. I mean,
it's huge.
if you pick the wrong person, you're pretty much guaranteed to not have it work out. I mean, because it's just,
Most people get
it's such a
resentful.
self-centered.
Resentful
That's
of it.
probably, you just probably touched on the toughest part of this whole thing. 'Cause, you just you got a flower, which is the the star artist. You got the flower in this pot, and over here is just grass. Left for the wife.
It's like a
and
garden.
you're always the one that's got the spotlight shining on you, and that's a problem. You say, well, what if you made a whole ton of money? That seems to be like, oh, that's a solution, sure. And you make a whole bunch of money, but then you didn't give them any of your time.
Yeah.
And so there really are no good solutions except it's like you guys have been alluding to, the blend, to make sure that you blend it as much as possible.
Yeah, and try to
so
keep
that
it- yeah.
doesn't get walled up,
Balance.
compartmentalized.
And again,
through the
sometimes it
stuff.
may minimize, the opportunities that you can do as a career. I mean, like traveling takes a lot of time by yourself. It's hard to, we've always had the school, Krista and I, and so we can't travel together, really. When somebody's got to stay here and run something,
Right.
you can't just have both people out traipsing around. So you don't really get to travel together. So one person's got to go and another person stay, or this and that. So it's just being balanced and trying to figure out what is the important, and then also recognizing that your spouse has a life too, and that you want to acknowledge that. Like I've been doing that recently, which was something I didn't even recognize in my career. I just snuck up on me. I didn't even know. And so once that happens, then again, there's a big paradigm shift, and everything has to be thought out and restructured, and that's just life. It's all doable.
When you have to show your appreciation of the gardener too.
Oh,
When you're the flower, they're the one making sure
It's
you
true.
get to bloom and be the best flower you can be. So we share that. Different times each of us. I mean, there's times that I'm having not such a good go of it, and I'm down on myself, and she's there to pick me up, and then
I know. I always
Luckily,
often
we don't
wonder.
have-
yeah,
the
we don't
same
tend to
time.
be on our downswings at the same time
Yeah,
too often. So
usually one's manic and one's.
That'd be a real earthquake with it.
it has happened. It has happened, but it's really really rare.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know you
That's
guys.
good.
I mean, that's like Glenn Orbick and Laurel when they were. We watched their career of their span, and they were a husband-wife combo. And there are some that can pull it off. It's not many, but I think you just have to find that delicate, like you said, balance. And you guys share so many great common things. So
and part of what's helped us, in fact, I mean, was Glenn. I mean, I didn't have a lot of conversations with him, but what I did, that was one of the things I would talk to him about. It's like, how do you guys do it?
You guys, because you guys were very similar in that manner. I always thought of you guys, and whenever I thought of that, I always thought about the two of you guys and how you guys work. But yeah, no, that's a toughie. I think. So when you talk about professionalism in your personal life, in your physical life, taking care of yourself, making sure it's balanced. Because I know some guys where it's like, they just, it's like they're up all night, they don't take care of themselves, and they end up, cashing out early, man. I mean, it's tough on your body. And stuff.
Or their spouse carries the load of everything else, and they never seem to realize that the reason that they are able to do what they do is because their spouse is cleaning the house, taking care of the kids,
eating,
walking the dog,
Yeah, the real life
taking care
stuff.
of everything
Dinner,
else.
lunch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, take a time to show your appreciation every once in a while. It's important.
Yeah. So these
Important.
are so this is kind of that's a really good one. That was a good. I mean, we touched on a lot of stuff on that. So.
How long?
Yes, indeed.
You can't see it, but our moderator has quite the mustache going.
Glorious.
It's a good thing you cannot see it.
Glorious lip warmer.
Pan left.
Okay.
You stay classy.
Good job. Yes, man.